We would be happy to add that to the agenda for the ABC meeting, the discussion around graduation rates. There has been some improvement, and it is a type of access that we don't always necessarily equate when we talk about enrollment and enrollment growth, the admissions figures and whatnot, is the space opening up and the time to degree that it takes for that space to open up. And then a very important component of that as well is the amount of debt that a student who borrows to finance their education has. So we'd be happy to have a more detailed conversation about that as well.
Look forward to it, and all the best to the Chancellor. I think we're a lot better place this year than we were last year, and hope we continue to go. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Assemblymember Irwin.
I just want to say I'm glad that we were able to put the $22 million in the budget for the innovation centers. I'm a big fan of UC, a UC graduate myself, and over the last couple of months I've been able to talk to some of the students that are doing research at UC Santa Barbara. I've gone by Lawrence Livermore and seen the extraordinary work they're doing there, and last week I was able to go to the QB3 incubator. And there were a couple of projects going on there, work on an artificial kidney, and then there's some immunotherapy. I don't think I pronounced that quite right. But this is for when you're talking about $22 million, it's really a small investment, because if one of those innovations is actually successful and is able to get to market, it would save the state billions of dollars. If you can imagine an artificial kidney that was developed through this UC incubator getting out to market, it would make a tremendous difference. So this is just the first step along the way, but I think it's a great partnership between us and the UC, and it's really taking advantage of the incredible work that's going on at all the campuses and making sure that the community and the state is able to economically benefit from the work at UC. So I just hope that you help us continue to push it through at the Senate and with the governor, and then maybe we can get this done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Assemblywoman. You have that commitment from us, and I'm very pleased that you were able to visit QB3. I have a soft spot in my heart for that place because I worked at UCSF at the time that Governor Gray Davis and the university had this vision for the California Institutes across all of the campuses. So I'm glad you were able to go there. Thank you.
Ms. Kim? Okay. All righty. Thank you. You know, we have quite a few actions today, and I think we've debated this back and forth, and so I don't want to go through tit for tat, but we think that the enrollment proposal is consistent with the growth that's laid out already with the UC with both undergraduate and non-resident enrollment. You were planning on growing by a certain amount of 1,000 per year, and so maybe the PIPIC study would have a bit more than we're talking about. Our plan falls within that, and we do think that the money we're providing is $10,000 and is state resource. It's just state resource that we find in other pots. In other words, we could make some adjustments, bring it back to the state, and give it back to UC. Nonetheless, it's still state resources being put forward for the majority, and then the student fee revenue is basically fees being paid by people in the system as well. So we think it is appropriate, and it adds up to the requisite 10,000 number. But most importantly, today is not the final action. We have the Senate has their own plan. We'll have conference committee, and I'm certain that the governor and Department of Finance will have an opinion as well. But we think it's a fabulous starting point. Really, again, a culmination of a couple years of work on these issues, trying to find a sweet spot where we think it's fair. And I think we have done so today. So I'm just going to highlight, the major points of this UC package and entertain a motion from some committee members. Again, the highlight is, of course, we're approving as budgeted the $125 million that was kind of lost upon in the base budget in January, which is the 4% accord from the governor. We also have the enrollment package that expands resident California enrollment by 5,000 students and would decrease non-resident enrollment by 1,700 students starting in the 17-18 year And with that, we would provide $20 million in additional general fund support. We'd also ask the UC to come up with roughly $20 million in efficiencies, looking at the Office of the President, the Working Smarter Initiative, campus communications budgets, like we saw over here at UC Davis, or the Neuro Psychiatric Institute, which the auditor pointed out would be good place to start looking for UC efficiencies. Lastly, to the three-legged stool of this piece is to ask that non-resident students pay a bit of a surcharge, a 3.2% increase in non-resident supplemental tuition, which would help expand access for UC students. As far as the outside auditor piece, again, we are rescinding the initial action from a few weeks ago to create an Office of Inspector General, and instead asking our state auditor to perform the work and giving her department an additional $1.1 million. We'll be providing $6 million at the UC's request to focus on graduate student enrollment. And I realize if we adopt this other plan with the 5,000, you'll be back with even more requests for graduate students. So we get that. At the suggestion of Assemblymember Irwin, is a great proposal, and I want to go down and see the CB3 at Berkeley as well one day. We're providing $22 million in general fund to provide the 10 UC campuses plus the labs an opportunity to receive $2 million apiece to expand innovation, entrepreneur activities, and jobs for Californians. We're providing $10 million to expand UC student academic outreach and educational partnerships and academic preparation programs by rejecting the governor's one-time proposal and folding in that $4 million at one time plus $6 million for a total of $10 million ongoing for these programs, focusing on the student-centered programs. We will be providing $2 million in general fund support to conduct an equal employment opportunity best practices package and working with the UC over the next few years to help address the racial, ethnic, and gender composition of our faculty and staff at the UC system. As was noted earlier, we'll be providing the $171 million in Prop 2 funds for the UC pension issues only if the UC rescinds its proposal to allow employees to opt out of the UC retirement system, as well as addressing the issue of having the secondary defined contribution options in addition to the pension cap. 3 more items. We'll be asking the UC to work with us and report back on the cost of instruction based upon the National Association, dealing with the issue that we had at oversight hearing with the Higher Ed Committee, with outside activities from UC executives and UC executives and administrators on outside boards and commissions. We're asking that UC adopt some new policies to provide transparency and oversight. That's part of this package as well. We have the opportunity to work with PIPIC and others to focus on the college degree gap, so we're asking UC to work on that. And then the last item that I skipped because I had an old agenda is a $3 million increase in general fund to the Charles Drew Medical Center to support enrollment, campus facility needs, and expand research dealing with health disparities of underserved communities in California. So that's a highlight of the package. I think I listed all the pieces there. If not, maybe someone could enlighten me. But looking for a motion on this package.
Move approval of the package.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. McCarty?
Aye.
Mr. Chavez?
Aye.
Ms. Irwin?
Aye.
Ms. Kim? Aye. Mr. O'Donnell?
Okay, thank you. Next, we will have the CSU.
Assemblyman, if
Yes,
I may
sir.
interrupt for just one moment, I just want to indicate that I have in bold approval of the governor's budget proposal to increase funding by the 4% and underlined with thank you and exclamation points. So I'm sorry that I skipped over that in my notes. We don't take it for granted, and we are very grateful for your support. That money is put to good use every year. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Flaherty. Okay, we'll move on now to the California State University and the budget package. What do you think? Yeah, to the members and maybe assistant. Okay, welcome back. We now have our CSU budget package, and this budget proposal supports the CSU budget requests and then some. We believe that the CSU is the workhorse in providing undergraduate degrees in California, and they made a strong case for additional funding. And the package before us will provide resources for 10,000 full-time student increase, and as well putting in place an opportunity for CSU to continue to improve activities related to improved graduation rates. And we're really focused on a package we have before us to focus on summer school. We think that's an important tool to help us address graduation rates. So I want to allow the Department of Finance, the LAO, and the CSU Chancellor's Office to comment or opine on the proposals before us today. Department of Finance?
Maritza Urquiza with the Department of Finance. Our comments for the CSU proposed budget are similar to those of the UC package. We are opposed to spending levels above the governor's budget and the merit revision proposals. We appreciate the staff's recommendation to provide one-time funding for the CSU as an incentive for CSU to adopt more ambitious graduation rate goals. The administration's goals align with those proposed in the staff's recommendation. While the administration concurs with the expectation that CSU expand access for more students, we are concerned about setting total enrollment targets and articulating total enrollment as the measure of access. As we've stated in prior hearings, we believe that the state can increase access by graduating current students in a timely way and therefore opening seats for new students. So thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. LAO, comments?
No comments on the package. We're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. The CSU?
Hi, I'm Kara Perkins. I'm the Executive Budget Director for the CSU. I'm here because Ryan Storm is at the Board of Trustees meeting this week, so we've changed places. So first of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here and talk about the budget proposal. We are very happy to see this increase to the budget for the CSU. As you know, our support budget included funding for access, compensation, mandatory cost increases, capital needs, and student success. And so reflected in your increased budget for the CSU, that additional $101 million that we're seeking is reflected here, most of it going to enrollment growth. As was the case in 15-16, that additional enrollment growth at this point in the budget year is difficult for the CSU. We would love the opportunity to expand that FTE count into the 17-18 year so that campuses aren't making enrollment decisions right now. Many campuses are already doing orientation and orientation signups for this fall. So there is some growth available in the spring semester with transfer students, and we certainly do that where we have space available and can make more space available, but would like to include the fall term and or the summer term to count some of that FTE that you've chosen to allocate money for the CSU. So on the next topic, state-supported summer. We've had a lot of conversations about this. This is part of one of the strategic goals of the CSU to get back to summer enrollment so that students can make continued timely progress toward degree. That it be state-supported is incredibly important to the CSU because so many of our students have financial need, and when summer is not on state support, we don't have the opportunity to provide as much financial aid to those students. So the funding for that is much appreciated. I'll skip back a tiny bit. The allocation for the 10,000 new FTE is what we requested in our support budget request. However, the $10 million earmark for recruitment competes with other priorities. We don't have an issue with demand at the CSU. We continue to have more demand than we can provide access for, and that would be true even with the additional FTE for 17-18. And so that $10 million competes with other student success priorities and the capital budget that we would like to continue to spend on our deferred maintenance backlog. So related to the one-time allocation for improved graduation rate target setting, the CSU is convening a representative group this summer that will include trustees, presidents, provosts, vice presidents for finance, vice presidents for student affairs, students, and faculty to look at what each campus's 4- and 6-year graduation rate targets should be for the 2025 graduation initiative. Since those needed, we have agreed with the Department of Finance that they've needed to be rebenched. We did better in our last grad initiative than what our goal was, and so it made this next target look not as aggressive as it probably can be. So we'll be doing that this summer, and are happy to see the $25 million in one-time funding there. As you know, one-time funding can only be spent on one-time expenses. So that's a lot of things like technology upgrades for e-advising, other types of student success programs that can be funded on a one-time basis. So it's not expanding things. It's not hiring more tenure-track faculty. It's just the one-time expenses. And so we just want to be clear about that. On the equal employment topic, this is something that's very important to the CSU. We did just release, and I don't have it with me, a best practices for recruitment and retention of faculty and staff of color. This is something that all our presidents are taking very seriously, in that we do want the CSU to reflect our student body and the state of California. I'd like to echo Mr. Flaherty's comments about the reporting on the cost of instruction. I am not as familiar with the NACUBO methodology, and that's something we can look at. We are preparing the report for this fall right now, and that's something we'd like to continue to engage in. What's the best way to look at cost of instruction? Some of the national metrics don't take into account the comprehensive universities the same way as the R1 universities, which reflects most of the CSU. So I know you heard from, actually I'm not sure if it was this committee, Carrie Reif, one of our attorneys on the executive conflict of interest and serving on boards, and we are reviewing that policy. Presidents, vice chancellors, and the chancellor all have in their contracts that they I've lost the words. Some language about what is allowable in the CSU and what processes they need to go through, but we are updating that policy now. The budget bill language about PPIC, as the UC said, this is significant growth for the CSU. We wouldn't normally come in and talk about a new campus. It's incredibly expensive to start a new campus. But we do have a lot of campuses in the 30 to 35,000 student enrollment range. So the growth has to occur at the smaller campuses. It would be very difficult to do this much growth that quickly, although we are happy to look at what that would actually mean for the CSU and what kind of funding it would take to fund that, so that the students aren't just being funded to enroll, which we have done historically, but we need them to graduate in a timely way too. And so we need to balance our investments at the CSU between access and student success, so that once we take you in, you have the opportunity to take all the classes you need to graduate in 4 years if that's your plan, and that we've given you a plan to get there. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Questions or comments from members of the committee? Ms. Kim.
Comment. When I met with the CSU officials, one of the key things that we talked about and raised concern was, obviously, we want to provide as much access to students to have the educational opportunities. But again, the concern I always had, having raised 4 kids and 3 of them went to CSU, the ability to graduate on time. When I went to school many decades ago, it was 4 years. Now, 6 years seems to be the norm. And it doesn't have to be that way. One of the ways that we can actually help the graduation rate to be under, hopefully, 6 years is if we can provide additional opportunities for them to take classes, especially in the majors that they are signing up for. My daughter, for example, in 3rd year accounting, couldn't even start getting her major classes until too late. She had to finally change her major in order to get herself on track to graduate on time. So to see that summer school is now being funded, and I'm very happy to support the $25 million ongoing in the general fund to allow students to take summer classes to do just that. So I'm very happy to support this. But again, I hope that there will be more innovative ideas to ensure that our students will have access to classes so they can plan their future according to the graduation. And I'm sure, the sooner we get them out, we leave opportunity for other students to come. So we will be taking care of the ongoing crisis of not having enough spaces in our CSU campuses. So this is one of the ways. And another option that we talked about is having the online courses available. So let's be proactive and see what other ways we can be more creative in terms of providing the classes they need. And if this is the type of thing that we can do and to support, I'll be more than happy to do it. So I'm glad to see this.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Chavez?
More of a clarification, I think, from probably you as a chair. The $76 million general fund that we're plussing up, and the CSU saying that the $10 million spend on student outreach isn't something that they really need because they're getting more students than they have seats for. Seems to make sense. So is there any way we could address that $10 million, give them more flexibility to it?
Sure. We could, but that's not my recommendation. That's twofold. Is that one, we want to expand opportunities for people that are on the bubble in high school to get into the CSU, as well as getting students who are from underrepresented groups to stay the course and to not drop out at numbers that aren't reflective of the student population as a whole, and more importantly graduate within the 4 years, as you said. So we think it is an important piece of the puzzle to success at the CSU, along with funding enrollment.
So how I agree with you, because in our hearings we talked about the number of children who come, first time students going in and able to maintain themselves. How does the word outreach deal with making sure those students are successful?
It's really a descriptive term. We can certainly tighten it down in the final supplemental language or the trailer bill as we get to conference committee. But an overarching umbrella term dealing with student success programs, academic probation programs that are already in existence within this.
We could do that. I think that'd give them a little more flexibility. I agree with what you're trying to do, because it came in our hearings that there's a need for it. You just want to make sure that it's going after something that we don't need to go after. So
okay.
Thank you for allowing me to talk about that.
Thank you. We'll look at tightening it up a little bit.
Thank you.
Questions over here? Comments? None. Okay. So we're certainly pleased with the CSU package we have in front of me, and I have lost the page for that. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. So this package, of course, I'll be looking for a motion at the appropriate time. It's to approve, as budgeted, the governor's proposal for the $140 million in general fund, approve the May revised proposal to create the CSU Student Success Network, as well as approving the $25 million. Just a clarification, it's ongoing. It's not one time. So it's the 25.
2 pieces, right?
Yeah, it's the 25. We're making that ongoing,
right,
tying to the 76, and combining that, dealing with enrollment growth, the graduation initiative, as well as a piece of the $10 million for student outreach programs, which maybe we can work on clarifying what that is. As well, we'll be providing $25 million ongoing for CSU to create a summer school program really dealing with graduation. It's really a summer school graduation improvement initiative, allowing CSU to bring back these programs to help students, get out of the CSU system in 4 to 5 years, hopefully. Just a clarification, how we're funding this is using some savings from the middle class scholarship program. We'll be providing CSU $2 million as well as adopting budget bill language dealing with the same issue we had with the UC, focusing on a plan and a report back annual for 5 years on the racial, ethnic, and gender composition of faculty and staff in efforts to assist campuses to providing equal employment opportunities in the system. We will be asking the CSU, along with the UC, to report biannually on the cost of instruction, focusing on the model with the National Association. And then with the CSU, along with the UC, we're asking them to tighten up their transparency and oversight practices related to outside employment for boards and commissions. And we appreciate the work that CSU has done to date, but we think there are some other pieces that could be done to make sure that these efforts are suitable for oversight and the best interest of the taxpayers and the students. And then lastly, we have a clause here, budget bill language, as we had with the UC, dealing with the out-year projections of enrollment within the CSU system. And just one clarification, I did want to take note that your suggestion as far as the 10,700 full-time equivalent student increase, and I think that's a good suggestion. We can put in there the fall of 2017 and not 2016-17. So with that, looking for a motion. Oh, excuse me. One more addendum that we want to add. Everyone got this handout here, and this is a $20,000 increase to the CSU Center for California Studies Sacramento Semester Program to increase financial aid for participating students. So this was handed out, and I think we have in the back as well. So with that, I'm looking for a motion and a second on the CSU package.
Move the CSU package.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. McCarty?
Aye.
Mr. Chavez?
Aye.
Ms. Irwin?
Aye.
Ms. Kim? Aye. Mr. O'Donnell?
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, CSU. If we can bring up the Student Aid Commission. Okay, last but not least is the California Student Aid Commission. And we know that without this, many students couldn't pay for college in the first place. And so we are pleased to have our package here today, which provides some additional support for financial aid for California students, focusing on increasing access to the Cal Grant program, the competitive program, as well as dealing with loan forgiveness for teachers entering the workforce, and coming up with a plan to looking at all the pots of financial aid we have in the UC, CSU, community college system, as well as the financial aid system. We spend nearly $5 billion a year, and students still graduate on average with debt of, I think in California, you're roughly a little over $20,000 a year. And we want to continue to work to make college more affordable, not less. And so we're going to be asking the LAO to work with us to maybe come up with an innovative approach going forward to put in path a program for a debt-free college education in California. So with that, we have the package laid out here in the agenda. And again, we want to allow the Department of Finance, the LAO, and the Student Aid Commission to provide any commentary. Department of Finance?
increase ongoing spending commitments. Finance has no position on how the legislature chooses to direct its analysts, and we are open to having conversations with them on the subject. Thank you.
Leo?
Paul Glozewski with the LAO. No comments on the Cal Grants or Apple proposals. Regarding the reporting language, we did work with your staff on the reporting language and think it's something that we could accomplish within the time frame.
Student Aid Commission?
Lupita Cortez Alcala on behalf of the California Student Aid Commission. We share your budget goals of access, affordability, and success. And to show you how grateful we are about the approved financial aid package for us, I'm going to be very brief. We support the increase of 4,250 competitive grants, the staff recommendation. We also support the increase of 800 new Apple Awards. We know there's a shortage in special ed, English learners, math, and science teachers, and this would be a great help and incentive. We also look forward to working with the LAO on the debt-free college report. Thank you very much.
Okay. Comments or questions for committee members? Seeing none. Yes, Assemblymember Kim.
Sorry, for clarification, I would like to ask we're using the savings from the middle class scholarship to fund this financial aid package. Is that right? How much?
Correct.
How much of the savings are we talking about?
I think there is about $40 million in savings from the middle class scholarship, and we're using 25 over in the CSU for our summer school initiative, summer school graduation rate initiative, and we're using 15 to increase the number of competitive Cal Grant awards by nearly 5,000.
Okay. And then that also will be used for students attending private and nonprofit colleges and universities?
Correct. To the extent that Cal Grant competitive Cal Grant recipients are going to the private. And just for that, I will note it's not on the agenda, but the private college association, of course, they fill a role in dealing with our degrees currently, and frankly our degree gap going forward. So that's why this committee opposed the governor's proposal to have a cut for the private Cal Grant awards. However, we didn't see it in our budget allocation this year to provide an increase. We'll ask them to come back next year, and we'll consider that going forward because we feel it does dovetail nicely with our desire to have more college degrees in California.
All right. Thank you.
Assemblymember Irwin.
I just want to make a comment on that. I do have a private school in our community, very high quality, Cal Lutheran, and they do provide a great education, a great value to the taxpayers. So I certainly think I'm glad that we're restoring the cut, but additional funding to make it fair because they are providing really a lower cost education for residents of California.
Mm-hmm. We concur. So we look forward to working on that issue next year. So with that, looking for a motion on the package, which again increases competitive Cal Grants by roughly almost 5,000, authorizes 800 new Apple Awards for loan forgiveness for people entering the teacher profession, and outlines a plan to deal with a college education that's debt-free in California. Looking for a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion to adopt issue number 3 financial aid package for California Student Aid Commission.
Okay, we have a motion in a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. McCarty.
Aye.
Ms. Irwin.
Aye.
Ms. Kim. Mr. O'Donnell.
Okay, thank you. That concludes the work for the year. Thank you so much, members of the subcommittee. We'll hold the roll open for a few moments for Mr. Chavez to come back, and we'll lift the call. We'll lift the call real quick on the initial items for Assemblymember Irwin to add on.